Welcome back to section 3. We're going to talk a few minutes about extensions of imperfect competition. And the authors get into advertising and price discrimination. To me, this may be the more interesting part of the chapter. The game theory and that type of information, I enjoy reading it. How much it's going to impact you in your future job or business dealings. Probably yet to be seen, but I think you need to take to heart and make sure you understand the aspects of advertising and the aspects of price discrimination and how it impacts multiple industries and drives brand loyalty and how different firms price their output. Firms in markets that are not perfectly competitive try to influence positions on the demand curve they face through advertising. Makes sense? Watch a little TV and you see how much advertising there is. If you've got some streaming channels like Hulu or Netflix or Amazon, if you don't, I guess, pay the premium to have it advertisement free, they can take an hour and a half movie and turn it into a 3-hour marathon just from advertising. Billions of dollars spent every year in advertising. And at the end of the day, it's interesting that the authors, some of the comments they have on advertising. Use advertising to increase profit, non-competitive. And a lot of the non-competitive firms are going to use advertising to drive that profit. Advertising could lead to higher consumer prices. And why would it lead to higher consumer prices? Somebody's got to pay for the advertising. And if firms are going to generate a profit, and remember, profit is total revenue minus total costs. And if your total costs are going up because of your advertising budget and you want to continue to make a profit, then what do you have to do? You have to raise price or to generate additional output in such a manner that the combination of price and output is going to drive a total revenue number that's going to be greater than the total cost. Manipulate demand and create barriers to entry. And here's where advertising impacts like brand loyalty, sustains high prices, drives a higher profit margin. So that's why that firms are advertising. They're manipulating demand and creating barriers to entry. Again, brand loyalty drives up production costs reflected in consumer prices. And here's the interesting comment that the authors make. No socially useful purpose for advertising. Uses scarce resources and produces nothing. So if you think about advertising, from a socially, relevant aspect, there's no, socially useful purpose to advertising. Then the authors spend a few minutes now they start to backtrack a little, and they talk about advertising and information. While it's socially wasteful, it could provide information, encourages and intensifies price competition, and forces prices down to consumers. I guess there can be, and depending on how advertising works, and depending on what advertisement you're watching or which products you're interested in, it may be a situation where it's going to provide you some pricing information that you might not have ordinarily had. Think about car dealerships or car manufacturers. They advertise pricing information. Car repair places advertise pricing information. They advertise information that not only is, provides, pricing information, but may provide some valuable information about a new product that they're going to come to market with. Probably doesn't tell you anything about the quality of the product. They may try to drive the perception of quality, but it's probably not going to be any realistic, useful purpose when it comes to quality. But it may help you do some price comparisons and help drive down the price to consumers. Again, talks about availability of new products, gives price information, money spent on advertising implies quality. And this is a useful concept that everybody ought to understand is firms typically aren't going to advertise a product if they deem it is an inferior product. They're going to advertise their quality products. Why waste money on an inferior product that individuals may buy one time and then throw it in the trash and never buy again? So advertising on a product does, to a certain extent, apply some level of quality. The other part of advertising on an inferior product, there's not a whole lot of payoff. It's not going to generate a lot of profit. A quality good implies repeat purchases. So what advertising is trying to do is they're trying to advertise the quality goods and services that they provide in hopes that we as the consumers, and when I say we, I'll talk about the collective we as consumers, buy the product the first time and are repeat customers. We decide that, Tide is the laundry detergent for us. We buy that first one, we use it, and we continue to be loyal Tide customers going forward. And the authors get into advertising and competition, creates consumer loyalty, brand recognition, and again, barriers to entry. They keep talking about consumer loyalty, brand recognition, and barriers to entry. All things come with cost and benefits. And they give an example about marketing dollars and the cost of marketing, the cost of advertising. And they used Kia as an example when they tried to enter the U.S. car market, I think in 1994. And it may help or hinder entering a market. With Kia, it definitely helped because Kia was able to establish themselves as a viable car manufacturer for the American or for the U.S. market. Impacts competition of existing firms. More concentrated the industry, the larger the percent of the budget and the total cost is generated through an advertising campaign. So more concentrated the industry, remember, the more concentrated the industry is, it's going to typically drive a higher percentage of the operational budget, and a higher percentage of that operational budget is going to be allocated over to advertising and marketing. High expenditures on advertising are the cause of concentration. So the more you spend on advertising, you hope that as a firm, you are solidifying your position or your market power in a concentrated industry. Higher prices and lower output because of market power and cost are passed on to the consumers. Advertising, I don't want to say transforms, allows some firms in certain industries to act or function like a monopoly. They can restrict output and at the same time drive higher prices. Advertising about price cuts increases competition and increases the consumer's power to comparison shop. Again, we'd mentioned that earlier. So if you're looking for price information, sometimes on advertising you can get the price information. If you're looking for quality information, you can imply that if a company is advertising a price, it is somewhat of a quality price that they are banking on, that advertising is going to generate repeat customers. And then the authors move from advertising, they move into price discrimination. And if you haven't heard or gone through exercises on price discrimination, it's kind of interesting the way it works. When you're talking about price discrimination, profit maximizing firms are trying to maximize the price and quantity levels. Deadweight losses when a firm has market power because they set marginal cost equal to marginal revenue, then go horizontal up from the quantity side, so go horizontally. Remember, monopolistic competition did it, monopolists do, and on price discrimination, you're trying to set a level. So you set your quantity level that you're going to produce. You go directly vertically up to the demand curve and read over to the vertical axis, and that's going to get the price that you set for your equilibrium for your firm. Price discrimination is a situation in which a firm charges different prices for the same good or service to different customers, even though there is no difference in the cost to the firm of supplying these customers. Generally legal, may be illegal in some states, but as far as I know, in the United States, it's generally legal to price discriminate. If a firm wants to price discriminate, it must have three things. It must have market power. Competition must take market price. In a competitive market, you have to take market price. Monopoly, monopolistic competition, and oligopoly firms are price setters. So it's been the trend all along. Perfect competition, you're a price taker. Monopolistic competition, oligopoly firms are price setters. They're going to set their price. They're going to set it based on marginal cost equal to marginal revenue, and then read the price off of the market demand curve. It must be able to distinguish customers, sort customers by willingness to pay. Highly elastic demand, a low price. Inelastic demand, you set a high price. So depending on how you stratify your customers, and depending on where you think they're going to hit that market demand curve, is going to determine how you set the price. The ability to prevent resale, and I will say this is key to it. If customers can buy low and then resell at a higher price, it's going to make things extremely difficult if you're trying to impact your profit margin with price discrimination. Often a seller of services rather than actual consumer goods. So, because services, it's hard to resell services. If you're a consultant and you're selling your services, it's hard for the client to take your consulting information and turn around and resell it. College education, it's hard to take and turn around and resell it. Massage therapy, surgical procedures. How are you going to resell a surgical procedure? Hey, I went in last night and I had my appendix taken out, surgically removed. It was, guy did a really good job, and can I turn around and resell my, appendix operation to you? No, it's not going to happen. So when it comes to the resale aspect, you typically find it with firms that are generating services. Price discrimination is common. And if you think about price discrimination, when's the last time, and when we lived in San Diego, we belonged to the San Diego Zoo. Got us tickets or got us admission to the zoo and the wild animal park. But if you went to the zoo and you didn't have tickets, there were ticket prices for seniors, there were ticket prices for students, ticket prices for children. I want to say 12 and below, maybe. Kids that were maybe 6 and below got in free. That's price discrimination. Stratifying it based on consumer information, and it doesn't cost the firm anymore. You go into well, it's like yesterday was Veterans Day. I'm sure there were a lot of restaurants, especially that had either food specials, maybe they were giving away food if you had a veterans card. You know, another form of price discrimination. Airlines, round trips. If you're doing a round trip on an airline and you can manage to stay over a weekend, it usually lowers the value or lowers the price of that round trip. Coupon clippers that clip coupons for the grocery store. Surgeons will price discriminate depending on different parameters. So price discrimination, it's fairly common and you see it a lot. If price differentials reflect differences in cost of production, then price discrimination doesn't exist. Remember, price discrimination doesn't impact the cost of a firm, it just impacts the price. And they give you some examples of things that aren't price discrimination: delivery options, special packaging, billing practices. They're impacting the cost of a firm, and it's not considered price discrimination. Perfect price discrimination implies charging each customer his or her maximum willingness to pay, also known as pure or first-degree price discrimination. Haven't heard that one before. Heard price discrimination a lot. I've just never heard it phrased quite like that. Requires a significant level of costly information. And here is the real kicker, that if you have read the text, I'll see if you picked up on it. If you haven't read the text, I suggest you go back and read this part of the text. Colleges tailor their financial aid packages individually. Tuition's the same. The tuition at Fisk is the same for everybody. It's just, and it's not just at Fisk. Vanderbilt, TSU, Fisk, University of Tennessee, Memphis, any place that you wanted to go to school in the state of Tennessee, the tuition at those universities are set. So much a credit hour, so much a course, so much a semester. Tuition set. What you actually pay, or what your parents pay, is based on financial aid packages, and they're priced individually. Award every student just enough to get them to come to a particular school rather than going somewhere else. It's called financial aid leveraging. Every college in the United States does it. Every college and university does it. Every technical and trade school does it. And the financial aid leveraging is based on, again, remember, perfect price discrimination is based on a lot of costly information. Financial aid leveraging depends on, as you fill out your application, your eagerness to attend, a relative that may have been a graduate of that school, scheduling a campus visit during your sophomore year, application for early admission. All of these are, I want to say, red flags. All of these are vital pieces of information to a university in order to determine their final aid packages. Commonplace, nothing wrong with it. Everybody's doing it. And it has generated an entire, I don't even want to call it a boutique industry. It's generated an entire industry. Consulting firms help colleges develop financial aid packages. So colleges and universities are using consulting firms that have access to a huge amount of information. and they're helping these colleges and universities tailor their financial aid packages. Again, if you haven't read that part of the chapter, if you ever read that part of chapter 11, I suggest you go back and read it. To me, it was interesting. Segmenting in a market. Third-degree price discrimination, the practice of price discriminating by separating customers into easily observable characteristics into groups, and then setting a different price for each group, also known as third-degree price discrimination. Also in the interest of the firm to price discriminate. It's always in the interest of the firm to price discriminate. That's how you get rid of excess output. Information is key. The level of want is the driver. Remember, demand for a good or service means the desire is there to seek that good or service and the ability to pay for that good or service. The desire to seek is the same thing as saying the want for the service. In the text, they were talking about price discrimination. It may have been when they got to this segmenting part. They were talking about some cartoon characters and buying Butterfingers in a convenience store in the middle of the desert somewhere. So maybe it was Family Guy or one of those cartoon outfits. But it's always in the best interest of a firm to engage in some level of price discrimination. If it wasn't in the best interest of the firm, why are all the firms doing it? That's going to wind up chapter 11. When we come back again, we're going to get into chapter 12. And I think chapter 12, if I remember correctly, we get into the factor market. Remember, chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, we talked about factors of production. You've got labor, you've got capital stock, you've got natural resources, which is land. You've got some level of, technological, entrepreneurial enterprise that driving the production process. But we're going to spend a few minutes talking about factor markets and their impact on how firms make their decisions. So that winds us up with chapter 11, and I'll see you next time talking about chapter 12.